Hello, my name is Brad McIntyre, and welcome to the Cultivated Playwright podcast, episode number 3. This past summer, I completed a full-length play. And when I say completed, I mean it's finished as a working draft and I can show it to people. Of course, like a lot of plays, I'm not done. I'm not completely finished with it. It's not complete because it still needs to be developed and put on its feet on stage. Plays, of course, are not complete packages on their own. And although it's beneficial sometimes to read a play, especially older plays like the plays of Shakespeare or old Greek classics. Ideally, you're supposed to see a play on its feet. A play is a recipe, a blueprint. So I'm not completely finished with the play, but I've completed it to a point where I can show it to people without embarrassing myself, which is often that's my goal. Anyway, I finished this play and I kind of stopped doing a lot of other projects in order to finish this play. At the beginning of the summer, I made a little decision with myself that I would stop dissipating my creative energies so that I could work on something big and impactful. I say this because I have a string of smaller works in my recent past. Festival-length plays, solo shows, one-acts, 10-minute plays, even a whole slew of 1-minute plays that I wrote for the 1-Minute Play Festival that came through Dallas the last couple of years. And though these plays are good in that they keep me busy, they keep me active, and I'm able to say I am a playwright because I'm writing these plays, a 10-minute play is not nearly as demanding as a full-length play, like a full evening of theater. And it wasn't until I stopped and looked around at the beginning of the year at what I've been doing the last couple of years that I realized I had stopped making full-length plays, big plays that would maybe make an impact on the cultural landscape. And I had really retreated to doing a lot of smaller projects. So when I say I've finished, to some extent, a full-length play this summer, what I'm saying is I've gone back to doing something a little bit grander in scope, a little bit higher in magnitude as far as artistic endeavors go. And it should be pointed out that writing a full-length play from scratch is a difficult task. It's hard, and that's actually one of the reasons I like to do it. The difficulty is actually part of the draw. It's comparable to reading a classic work of literature in its original form rather than reading about that work. Late last winter, I really got into Goethe. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, the great German playwright and novelist. Anyway, I read a book about Goethe, and then it led me to the work of Goethe. And I picked up his first novel, The Sorrows of Young Werther. And I started reading the book, and it's actually really antiquated. The writing is very flowery, at least in the translation that I picked up. But I stuck with it. I read the book, and I was grateful to get a chance to read at least as close as possible because it was originally written in German, but to read the original work, not read cliff notes about the work, not read a Wikipedia entry about the work. But I feel that I understand a little bit more about Goethe because I read his novel, and I'm slowly making my way through the other works of Goethe. Because I find him fascinating in a lot of ways. This reading of the original texts is a difficult thing. And though it is difficult to read these literary texts in their originals, it's usually way more instructive. It's one thing to read about Aristotle's Poetics. It's another thing to read Aristotle's Poetics. And just because something is difficult doesn't mean that whatever time that you put in is not worthwhile. In fact, it's usually the opposite. The harder it is to read something, usually the more beneficial that thing is, especially compared to other works of lesser quality or lesser value. And so it is with writing plays, or so it is for me in writing plays. A 10-minute play has its value, but it is not nearly as painful to create as a full-length play, a 2-act to 3-act play. And this no pain, no gain philosophy kind of carries over. Especially in the case of works of the mind and works of the heart, that is to say, works of art. There's a greater return the more one puts into it. In the case of reading classics, the more you put into the reading of it, the more you get out of it. But in the creation of artworks, I think it's true as well. The more you struggle with trying to make something from scratch, the more you're going to get out of it. The greater the impact is going to be for the audience that will eventually watch this play. And as I said earlier, one of the appeals for me for writing plays is just how difficult it is to write something original. Not something derivative, not something as an homage to something else, not something copied from another medium, but really to make something up from scratch, like completely pull into existence something out of the void, something that did not exist previously. And to make that happen, to turn a blank page into a page of text where characters speak and act and behave and try to get something from other characters and pursue their objectives is actually a pretty hard task. And writers for a long time have written about how hard it is to actually write. And it should be noted that they're not lying. They're not really exaggerating. It is hard. It's hard to create anything in any art. I'm sure choreographers look at the floor of the rehearsal studio and go, I have to put a dance together. And I have infinite options of how I can do this dance. But they have to choose. They have to pick the form, the order that they're going to put that dance into. And that's what a playwright does. I had a friend a couple of years ago. He asked me how my playwriting was going. And I said I was having trouble with a particular scene, and I had written it over and over again. And I was eventually going to crack it, but I was going to have to keep banging my head against the wall a little bit longer. And he asked me pretty much point blank, he said, why are you doing it? Why are you writing plays? It seems so difficult. It seems so hard to do. And I remember answering him back, I'm like, well, that's why I do it. Like, one of the reasons I enjoy the process is because of the challenge of thinking something up out of thin air. This capacity to create out of nothingness. I enjoy that particular challenge. Life throws at us all kinds of dilemmas, all kinds of problems all the time. Throughout the day, we have to deal with running out of laundry, people driving crazy on the highways around us, people not getting our order right at the restaurants we go to. Just 101 little annoyances, a bunch of little dilemmas, little problems that have to be addressed. In order to go forward with life, you have to deal with them. You have to address it. If you don't do the laundry, you will run out of underwear. Like, you have to address it. And these problems that come at you are unsolicited, meaning they come up out of the blue. They don't announce themselves, ahead of time. When somebody's driving slow in front of you on the highway, you didn't plan on that person driving slow, but now you have to figure out how to go around them because they're going to make you late for work. These problems that pop up, these unsolicited problems, they're rather small if you think about them. They're small problems, but they're constant problems. They're something that everyone has to struggle against. One of the reasons I like writing plays is because I get to choose this particular struggle. I get to choose the challenge that I want to walk into. So when I sit down to write a play and try to make something out of nothing, I have chosen to walk across that particular patch of fire in order to make something happen. Like, I embrace that particular problem, that particular dilemma. I have chosen that struggle, and that choice of it, that's what appeals to me so much. we don't have control over a bunch of things in our lives, and a lot of trying to be happy is trying to let go of the fact that you don't have control over a lot of things. But when you sit down to create something, to make a work of art in some way, you do have control. You actively are making the decisions, and you have chosen to enter that particular arena. Anyway, I just thought I would share my thoughts on that. Maybe I'll have updates in the future of how the play turns out as it goes forward with its developments. I appreciate you listening to the podcast. I'm going to try to do these about once a week. I'll post them here on SoundCloud, and I've just set it up so that you can also get this on Stitcher or on iTunes. Just search for Cultivated Playwright, and the podcast should come up. Also, you can find out more about me and my work at my website, bradmcintyre.com. There's links on the website to all my social media stuff, my Instagram, my Tumblr, my YouTube channel, and so on. You can buy some of my plays. I have published. They're available on Amazon. But anyway, thanks for listening. And if you are an artist in some way, I wish you all the best in handling your own creations.